What if everything you thought you knew about hospitality and leadership was shaped by culture and you didn't even realize it? Tanja Saarinen Chávez has spent her life crossing borders from Australian outback to Mexico, uncovering how invisible cultural differences shape human connection. As an intercultural communication coach, she helps leaders decode what's often left unsaid. In this conversation, she reveals the moments, misunderstandings, and breakthroughs that transformed not just her career, but how she sees the world and people within it. Welcome, Tanja, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, very good. So maybe we can just start for our audience to get some background.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell me about your professional experience and why you founded Numinous Coaching.
Long story, actually. I have been very curious about culture ever since I was 7. I already then decided that I have my bucket list. One was to work in Disneyland Paris as a summer job. I wanted to do my exchange abroad. And then I also wanted to do a working holiday in Australia. And by the time I was 21, accomplished all of them. So I think kind of the cultures and traveling has always been part of me. But then when I was doing my studies, I came across this concept of cultural intelligence, and I really started to dig into that one. And I was like, this is something I want to do for a living. And I don't think there is anyone in Finland who actually coaches cultural intelligence for leaders, multicultural teams, or even like on the governmental level of how you should receive international talent arriving to Finland. I think the assumption has been that it's more that you come and then you just settle to the norms, when in Rome kind of style. So that was kind of my motivation, that this is really what I want to do for a living. And that's why I started Numinous Coaching.
Good. So take me back to the very first your job abroad in Disneyland Paris. What happened that made you realize, culture really shapes how we experience service?
I would say it's a little embarrassing story as well. I have been working as a waitress in Finland for several years during my studies as well. And I hadn't really thought about how culture would impact service. So I was just kind of like doing my thing, like being very efficient, like, hi, how are you? Here's your food kind of service. And then you are used to kind of emphasize what you say with your hand gestures. So I was just, showing because it was very busy and loud, like 2 portions with my fingers. And then I pointed them up, and then the guy in front of me was like, what are you doing? And later it turned out that it was basically me showing him finger. Because in the UK, for example, that's how you show finger to another person. And it had never occurred to me that, for example, the hand gestures are not universal. So kind of like a hard lesson. Luckily, based on my accent and everything, the person understood that, okay, maybe she was not aware of this. But kind of like from that moment on, I really started to pay attention of how my body language may also be translated, not only the words.
When it happened to you, that particular incident, what did you feel in that moment? Was it confusion, frustration, or curiosity?
I would say back in the days, it was more confusion, embarrassment. Nowadays, and it's something that I always tell to my client, is like, you are cultural intelligence coach, like you must never make cultural mistakes. I'm like, no, that's not the case. I will just realize them faster. And of course, in that moment, it's the curiosity that drives me. If I kind of read the person, gets uncomfortable or, shows those micro expressions that maybe something's a little off. I have now the skills to ask, did I offend you? Did I say something? So then the curiosity kind of drives me to understand what I did wrong, so I can apologize in that moment instead of hours later or maybe, years later.
Yeah. So if you could relive that moment today, what would you do differently?
Definitely not showing those fingers. I would just keep my hands on the table. or maybe, use something that I know is like universally acceptable. And then, of course, if I would understand it now, I would apologize right, or like, I'm so sorry. Like in my culture, this is like completely appropriate way to kind of emphasize the numbers in a busy environment. And I'm so sorry that I didn't realize that I'm showing a finger to you. So kind of like owning the mistake like right away. And probably the person would have been laughing instead of getting annoyed.
Yeah, there's so many things like in body language, gestures, in different cultures that are perceived so differently. I mean, you're very right. One glaring example is in Finland, if you notice how people are blowing their nose in public, and and that is considered in Asia very rude, and because you don't want to show that kind of gesture because it's almost like an insult. Have you come across that kind of attitude, or is that something that you feel you don't notice, or how do you notice this?
I would say there's a lot of differences when it comes to kids. For example, I do have a 4-year-old and 1.5-year-old, and in Finland it's like shh. When you are ever in a public place or in a, for example, a bus or train, like you are not supposed to raise your voice at all, which is very hard with kids that small. But when you, for example, travel to Mexico and I'm there with the kids, like it's more that the whole bus is kind of trying to come and help you and kind of like entertain the kids kind of way. So the approach is very different, for example, regarding that. Yeah.
So you mentioned about Mexico, but was there any specific guest interaction that maybe you had in Australia that stayed you for a long time because it didn't go the way you expected? And perhaps what did it teach you?
I was working in an outback hotel in Australia. It was literally middle of nowhere, a town of 25, emphasizing 25 people. So like a teeny tiny. The closest supermarket was, I think it was 3 hours drive away. But there was a lot of Australians who were traveling with the caravans. And being Finn, I was taught, you go to the bar, you make the drinks, and then you focus on the next customer. And then there was a moment when one of the Australians told me like, Tanja, just, relax, chit chat, come and have a drink with us. And I was like, but I cannot have a drink with you. I'm working. But it was kind of something that was expected of you. It is like specifically in that environment that you are not just there to serve them. You are supposed to interact with them. You are supposed to, chit chat with them, have the conversation. If it's calmed down, you go and have a drink yourself, and kind of entertain them, in a way. And it was really hard for me because my work ethic was really against it in Finland. Like you would have never sat down with a guest and have a drink with them. So that was kind of also the lesson to learn, that you really have to adapt the way you serve people in different environments.
What was going through your mind right after it happened when they asked you to join me for a drink?
I was so uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable. I was only 20. And the culture in Finland isn't that chit-chatty either. Like you avoid your neighbors to the best of your abilities if you take a trash out. So I was really uncomfortable with it. I just, wanted to finish my shift and, be me. But little by little, I had a British colleague who was really outgoing. So I kind of learned from her how to do it, because she was like right out there. But yeah, I was quite uncomfortable doing it, to be honest, in the beginning.
I understand that. You lived across so many cultures. Can you share a moment where you personally felt misunderstood and how that shaped the way you now coach others?
I would say the biggest culture shock I have had has been actually in Mexico. I have been together with my husband for 10 years, who is a Mexican. And the first time I was kind of aware of the cultural differences, but then to go and live them was like a completely other thing. I wasn't aware of any of these like cultural dimensions or the theory or anything. So it kind of like hit my face. So for example, when in Finland, when you are in a conversation, you always give space to the other people. You don't really interrupt them ever. Like that's kind of the sign of respect. And in Mexico, it's like completely vice versa. Like you just jump in and you interrupt. And that's kind of like you show that you are interested in the other person. So very different way. So I remember one person telling me, I think it was the second trip there, when I also had to improve my Spanish, that, oh, Tanja, like you are so much more chattier now. I was like, but this, like, this is like, I'm trying to improve, but it's really, really difficult. But they thought that I was being very shy because I didn't interrupt them. So they were thinking that I don't have anything to say. I'm very timid, instead of I was just waiting for my turn to kind of give my input. So like when I think about it now, I'm like miles away from that position. Now I just, jump in and like interrupt, even though I wouldn't be grammatically correct. But yeah, that was kind of something that really stood with me.
Yeah. Did it change how you listen to people today?
Yeah, I would say I even have the best of both worlds, because as a Finn, I'm really used to kind of just listening. But then I have developed that ability also to jump in. So now that I also understand how usually the culture responds to different things, I can also adapt my style accordingly. I know when it's appropriate to interrupt people, when it's even expected of me.
Yeah, understood. Do you remember a moment when you first discovered cultural intelligence and thought, this is it. This is what I want to dedicate myself to, and what clicked emotionally for you?
Yeah, I already touched that like briefly, but I was doing my studies, my master studies, and I came across this article about 6 traits of inclusive leader. And one of them was cultural intelligence, and it was a term that I have never heard of in my life. I was like, well, this sounds like really interesting. Like whenever there's a word culture, I was like, what is this? So then I started reading more about cultural intelligence, and that's when I understood kind of the concept that it's not, the normal intelligence. It's not emotional intelligence. It's something on top of it. It's basically the combination that you have to be very culturally aware to understand, for example, how emotional intelligence may vary in different cultures. So I really started to dig into it. I wrote my master's thesis on how you can coach cultural intelligence. So I jumped right in. I started my company because of that specific article.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
So was it more of a quiet realization or a big aha moment when you thought about this cultural intelligence?
It was like an aha moment, because it was something that I knew I had kind of intentionally done my whole life. When it has been, friends or colleagues traveling, I was like, yeah, but maybe there's this and maybe there's that. Maybe they just thought about this way. But I never had kind of the solid why behind my arguments. And having this like scientifically researched term, like what is behind it. And it went back to the 80s and the 70s and the 60s where they have actually researched about it. It gave me the theory that I was lacking, why people behave in a certain way.
Yeah, understood. But you have worked in hotels, am I correct?
Yes, some hotels,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the time you saw a hotel team struggle internally because of the cultural differences. What was happening beneath the surface that no one was thinking about?
I would say in general, when you are working in a hotel where it's very touristy, you have a lot of variation of the tourists that are incoming. It's that you have this standardized way you create guests. You don't really adapt the way they want to be treated. For example, when you are in the Nordic, if you're a Nordic passenger, like usually you just want to go to a room as fast as you can. There's not even the hotels that you don't even have to do the checking. So you really kind of try hard to avoid human connection. But then you may have these guests, for example, coming from Asia that really want to kind of think ahead of you. They are expecting kind of a surprise element. They want to be created. It needs to be personalized. And I think that is in general what is lacking in some hotels. And I think in Lapland, you can also clearly see about that. The UK tourists that are coming, they are saying that, the service wasn't up to their standards. Like they didn't feel with the thousands of pounds that they are paying, that the service level wasn't there. They weren't created, with that level of money that they actually put to that trip.
Yeah, I mean, this, of course, people who are traveling extensively, and then if they're coming from Asia, they are used to a very a service level that is, or service style that is very personal, and then the staff takes the time to sort of observe them and kind of find out what are the likes and dislikes and come up with some ideas that will cheer them up. And this is, of course, in one way, I also noticed that the service style here is mechanical, almost like a procedure, like, and that maybe there's a little bit of a history how we have had hotels, but now things are changing, and I think there are many hotels that are adapting, and also the new generation of staff working in hotels who themselves have traveled. I think they are they realize that there is more to it than just going through a procedure, but creating sort of that kind of experience to a guest that makes them feel special, and that makes a big, huge difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it was actually interesting. I was just also talking to a person who trains teams around the world, especially in hospitality and airline industry. And he was saying that when he's training people in Asia to kind of like how to deal with challenging customers, that they have to be more determined, they have to be more firm, because the natural way would be kind of to give in to all the requests that this challenging guest has. Whereas, when, for example, in Finland, like you are like, no, like we have these terms and conditions, this is how we do it. I'm so sorry, we have basically no flexibility on this matter. So I think also that is very interesting point, that you also teach the customer service from different angles. In the Nordics, maybe you have to be more flexible, accommodating, but maybe in Asia with the challenging ones, you are not that accommodating. So it's kind of like different ways that you also have to go with the customer service, and what you would have to learn when it comes to the cultural intelligence part.
Yeah, from the years in Asia, I clearly recall that there were times when the guests want to take fully advantage of that situation, try to see what they can get for free, or or pushing that situation, and of course the staff felt uncomfortable because they're facing a situation where they have the guest is creating the conflict in front of them without actually there shouldn't be a conflict, and that kind of really happens in Finland because of the style that we are doing. Okay. Think of a moment where hospitality felt deeply human and authentic to you while traveling. What was happening, and why did it resonate so strongly with you?
I think one of the moments that I really remember is that I was traveling by myself between Finland and Mexico with my 1.5-year-old. So he was sitting on my lap, and I was, by myself. Whenever he went to the toilet, he was there, like that age, you cannot just, let them out of your sight. And then he was just, sleeping there in my arms at one moment, and then the food came, and I was like, well, I'm holding the child here. I cannot really eat. And then the staff came, and they brought me pillows and blankets from the business class, just to kind of help me to support my boy a little better. And it wasn't, the person next to me wasn't, part of the staff, but she helped me to cut my food so I could eat with one hand. And they were like really, really like helping me and kind of meeting the mom in need on that moment, even though they wouldn't have to. But I really remember that moment, how everyone around me was really helping. They were really understanding, when my baby was crying. And they were kind of trying to help me also to calm him down. And that I remember really well, that moment, how they really went the extra mile for me to help me out with that long fight.
What was that the smallest detail that made this experience unforgettable? Was it somebody helping to cut your food, or was it bringing the blanket? Or
I think it was kind of bringing the blankets, because it wasn't something that, they were even allowed to do in a way, but they did it because I needed help. I was just sitting in the economy class with like 3 other passengers next to me. And then just kind of giving this special service. They brought me also extra meal for my kid when he woke up, even though, when you didn't actually pay for his ticket because he's under 2, like you would have needed to bring your own food. But they also did that just because they wanted to be kind and understanding. So it was that let's just say how they met me. Yeah.
Do you think that kind of a moment can be taught, or does it have to be felt?
I think to some extent you can definitely teach it. But I also have this like intuition saying me that the person was a mom. So she kind of understood what I'm going through. But I think it's definitely something that you can teach as well. Kind of show examples that, maybe when you meet a person like this, like there are these little things that you can also do for them.
Yeah. On the flip side, can you recall a moment where a service felt off culturally, almost invisible to some, but very obvious to you? What was missing?
I think there has been kind of several of those. I would say in Asia, like we discussed about the conflict, when something hasn't gone as you intended, and then you kind of raise that, like, I'm not really happy with this solution, and I clearly feel that I have been mistreated. And then you just kind of like get this smile, like, okay, lady, but this is all we can do is like show, like apologize, show like other emotion than, just, kind of like a fake smile. But then of course, that's kind of how that service level is there, that you are not supposed to show any of those, let's say, negative emotions in front of guests, that you always just, keep that big smile and say like, no, this is how it is. And then like as a Finn, it kind of feels like a double standard to you instead of authentic. So I would say those moments have been something that I'm like, okay, not happy how you're approaching me, but okay, I understand the reason why you are doing it.
When you reflect on your journey, you've been in Malta to Argentina, to the outback of Australia. How have those experiences changed the way you personally connect with people today?
I'm very curious. Like I always kind of like give the benefit of a doubt. If I feel that they are saying something that I like, my first instinct is to be offended. I was like, oh, what did you mean by that? I always jump first, like maybe I received the message in a wrong way. Maybe the person who was speaking intended that in another way. That's the mindset I always have when I'm talking to people, trying to understand kind of the reasoning and how they meant that message to be sent, because I think that's the main reason. Like you say something, you intended in a certain way, but does the other person receive it in a way that you intended? And that's kind of like what I always think about. And with all these cultures that I have lived, I know that sometimes, the way I interpret it is very different than how they intended the message to be received.
What part of you has changed the most?
I would say, people always say that, but Tanja, you are not the typical Finn. And I feel that when I was, 15-year-old, I was the most typical Finn in the world. I was like kind of shy, waiting for my turn. I wasn't really interacting. I wasn't really chit-chatting. And now, put me to amount of group of people and I will find a topic to talk of. And I can just, kind of be the social butterfly if that is expected of me. So I think that's the biggest part, that no matter where I am, I find a way to connect with the people, at least at some level, and find some sort of discussion that I can initiate with them.
Very good.
Yeah.
If you could take a hotel leader into one defining moment from your career to help them truly understand cultural intelligence, what story would you tell them and why?
I would tell a story about this coachee that I was working with. She was from United States, but she was working in Mexico. And I was contacted by her HR department because she needed some coaching. The HR told me that the way that she's interacting with the staff isn't really landing the way they want to, that the Mexican staff is kind of finding her very blunt and sometimes even rude, how she's kind of skipping levels in the hierarchy, which is not good. And kind of the way that she was building relationship wasn't the Mexican way, how they wanted it to be. So then I sat down with the coachee and went through that, and she was kind of denying everything. She said that everything is going fine. Like, I know the team, really likes her. She hasn't seen any challenges, any cultural differences, that the organizational culture is very different than the Mexican culture in general. So she was kind of being blind what was happening around her, and it did have a big impact of the team that she was leading, but she just couldn't see it. So I think that would be kind of the message, that just like sometimes I need to look from other person's eyes, that maybe there's something else there. You may be good in your own culture when you are leading, but when you are put in another culture to lead completely different way, maybe you have to adapt your style and get better results. Like, be open when people are kind of trying to hint you that, okay, maybe you should, maybe tweak your approach. And I always say to my executive clients that I'm not here to change you. I'm here to give you more flexibility of the range, the way you lead, because you have to adapt it. It's the same within your own culture. Like, when you have different personalities, you lead them different way. And when it's on the culture on top, you do have to tweak the way you lead, so that, like I said on the previous one, when you are speaking to them, do they take your words as you wanted them to be taken? So I think that's something very important to emphasize here.
Yeah. If they only remembered one thing from that story you mentioned, what should it be?
Be curious of yourself and the others around you, and don't make assumptions that people and cultures work in the same way as the culture you are coming from. Very
good. This has been a very interesting conversation, and thank you for sharing your experiences and all the tips here. We are now moving on to a final segment called Off the Mic. Mm-hmm. Now, this is more of a finding out a little bit more about Tanja, about the person behind the persona. So we are stepping off the mic now, and that's when we get to meet you in consider that we're moving from this studio to a more of a fireplace environment. We're sitting there comfortably and having a coffee and so on. So are you ready for a few questions?
We're ready.
After living in so many cultures, what's one habit you picked up that completely confuses people back home in Finland?
I use please a lot in Finland. When you go to a bar, you just say beer. That's it. Yeah. And I'm like, can I please, may have a beer, please? And they're like, why are you being so polite? So that would be very confusing for the Finns. Yeah.
If your personality was a mix of all countries you lived in, what would that chaotic cocktail look like?
Actually, my sister-in-law always says that I'm the Finn with the Mexican heart. So I think that would be it.
Okay. If I dropped you in a brand new country tomorrow, no preparation, no research, what's the first thing you'd observe to read the culture?
I would observe how people are interacting with each other. Are they being indirect or low direct? The way they are, for example, asking for things. So then that's kind of the main thing. Like, how should I communicate here? How direct should I be? Should I be more subtle with my requests, or should I just be very blunt?
Yeah. What's a culture shock moment that you can laugh about now, but at the time you were thinking, what is happening?
Oh, that was definitely, showing the fingers thing that I shared in the very beginning. And then I would say another thing was, again, in Mexico, I was preparing for my son's baptism. And then, in Finland, you are very punctual. When you say that I will be right there, we are talking about 15 minutes. And then my sister-in-law said that I will be there ahorita, which I interpreted by then that, she's going to be here soon. So there I was, sitting, waiting that she's going to be back from wherever she went. And she never came back. I was like, okay. And then I later learned that, this ahorita is very flexible term of saying that I may be there in 15 minutes or within the day. So, yeah. Yeah.
You coach leaders for a living, but who would you secretly never want to coach because they drive you completely crazy?
Oh, that's a very tricky one. I could name one very famous president of a very large country that I think everyone will know. Not going to say his name though, but yeah.
Between being a global traveler, a coach, and a mom, where do you feel most like your true self?
That's a tricky one. I feel very comfortable whenever I'm just with my family. My kids are going very multilingual. They have been also traveling a lot. So as long as I'm with my family, I know they are flexible and I know wherever we will be, we will always adapt as long as I'm with my family.
After everything you have experienced, what language do you dream in? And does it change depending on where you are in your life?
It changes daily. Within the hour, we speak Finnish, English, and Spanish home. So like within 15 minutes, I may use all of them. And usually it's the context around me that kind of determines the way I speak. I also use a lot of English at work. So I'm like switching to English. When I'm picking up my kids from the daycare, they speak Spanish. So then I'm thinking in Spanish. But I would say on my dreams, it's Finnish and English. Spanish, not so much, but definitely Finnish and English. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I'm dreaming in English also, and I think it goes back to when I moved to the United States and I was studying there, and people didn't understand my school English at that time, and then I have to adapt, and I start to talk to myself in English, and then I eventually start to dream also. So that's where it's coming from.
Exactly.
When you've been away, when you have been away from Finland for a long time, what's the one dish you start craving instantly? Feels like home.
To be honest, I do not crave that much of Finnish food because I found that it mostly has salt and pepper, and that's it. I'm more used to, the Mexican spices, but rye bread and pick and mix candies.
Okay, very good. And on the flip side, what's a new favorite food you discovered somewhere in the world that completely won you over?
There's this Mexican stand in kind of like the middle of a highway. It's like a tent. And there's something called caramelo. It's like a tortilla. It has cheese. It has meat. And then it has all these like delicious salsas. And that's like every time when we go there, it's like, please try me to that spot. I really want my caramelos.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about Mexican food, when you talk about Mexican food, it's in a different level than when I would talk about Mexican food, because I only experienced Tex-Mex when I lived in the States, and then the offering that we can get in Helsinki. So it's not much to compare to.
No. Yeah, we used to go to one or two Mexican restaurants here in Finland, but then we just realized that I can cook better at home.
There you go.
And it's cheaper. So yeah, it was kind of lacking the punch that we are used to, especially with the salsas.
Yeah. Is there a word or expression you picked up during your travel that you absolutely love? Can you say it in an original language and tell us what it actually means to you?
Well, ahorita, I would use it daily if I could. Just like, okay, I may be there, in 15 minutes, I may be there like within the day. That would give us so much more flexibility within my work. That's a very nice one. And in general, I think in Spanish, there's also other word that is called estrenar. And it means wearing something for the first time. It's like, you explained it in English and you used like 5 words and the same in Finnish. So that's something like, estoy estrenando esta ropa. I'm wearing this piece of clothes for the first time ever. So I also like that one.
Oh, that says so much about how you see the world. That's very nice.
Yeah.
If your life was turned into a movie, what would the title be and who would play you?
Oh my God, so tricky questions. It would be definitely adventure movie. Probably someone, traveling around the world. More like, let's say like Eat, Pray, Love meets Indiana Jones. Something like that. And the actor, really bad with actor names, but let's see, Catherine Zeta-Jones, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is a story I definitely would watch.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, and finally, if you could host a dinner with 3 people, alive or dead, who would you invite, and what kind of conversation would you hope to unfold at the table?
I would invite Erin Mayer. She's the one who has done these cultural dimensions that I used when I coach executives. So it'd be really interesting to have a conversation with her. Maybe then I would invite, Indiana Jones, if he was a real person, because he has traveled around the world and experienced those from a very different perspective. And then the third one, maybe I would just invite my husband, because he can be very taking a different perspective on issues. So that would be a very interesting conversation with those 3 on my table. Yeah.
Well, Tanja, this has been an excellent conversation. So thank you very much, and also you are bringing back so many interesting issues that we should always think about behind every culture, every label, every leadership theory. They're just a human being trying to connect to belong and to be understood. So this has been a very, very nice conversation. But finally, if people want to reach out to you, how can they do so? How can they reach out to you on the usual medias that we have?
I'm the most active on LinkedIn, so that's the easiest way, just to send me a DM. You can also go and visit my website, numinouscoaching.com. There you can also find a lot of blog posts. If this is some topic that interested you, I'm tackling different issues when it's the hospitality and cultural intelligence, the way multicultural teams work. So I would definitely recommend going there and reading those blog posts.
So thank you, Tanja. I appreciate that you joined today's episode, and thanks for all the fantastic insight.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.